Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to be making some simple display shelves for an optical store. I'm going to be using 18mm Baltic birch, and we will begin by ripping some stuff to width. I have the long rip configuration set up on the dashboard here, and I need the finished depth of these shelves to be a little under 19 inches. So I'm going to get 2 of those out of this sheet, and then there will be some excess which will be used for other parts. So if I set up parallel guides on the back of the table, 19 inches from the cut line, I will have too much of this sheet out the front of the table for me to reach across and make the cut. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the excess, and then I will cut my final 19-inch width based on stops on the back of the table. So the simple way to do that is we use the rip gauge and the new rip stops. So rip gauge is already set to the relevant dimension. I'm going to set that tab right on here against the splinter guard on my rail, flip the flag up, slide the ripstop into position, and tighten the knob. So there's one set. I'm going to do the same thing over on this end. Flip that flag up, move it up against the rip gauge, tighten the knob. So now I have 2 stops set using one standard, not like other parallel guide systems, which rely on you trying to line up 2 different needles and read the scale and hope you got it on the right line. Nonsense. Rip gauge. Now, I simply flip these flags out of the way, and I can load my sheet onto the table. Okay, so now let's put this sheet onto the table. Now, those of you who have worked with 18mm Baltic birch will know that it's very heavy. So it's pretty hard for me to put that up here by myself. Or is it? Now, I have put our door and panel support platforms on the front of the outrigger at an equal distance down from the plane of the work surface, in this case 25 inches. And so we're going to set that on those and then simply pivot it up. Now, because this is a somewhat sharp surface on the front of the outrigger, we don't want to damage that plywood, and let's say you were using something nicer than that, walnut, whatever, you could be at risk of damaging it a little bit, scratching the back side. So we have put our team of engineers together and come up with a solution, which we call the dashboard plywood protector. You can see this is an advanced piece of technology. Now what you're going to do is just set this right here on the front of your outrigger to protect the material as you pivot it up over. So let's get this. And of course I can move it like this, just slide it along. Now I'll just lift this up onto one support and then get it on the other one. So now it's ready to go. And now it's just going to pivot over. And there we are. No damage to me, no damage to the material. Plywood protector. Now to move this into position, we'll just flip the flags on the ripstop up into the active position and pull the material against it. Same thing on the other end. And I'm ready to go. Clean and controlled. Okay, so now we'll set the final dimension. I've reset the rip gauge. In this case, we're going to use our unparalleled parallel guides mounted on track stars off the back of the table. So just lift your rail, put that tab up against the splinter guard on the rail, make sure you're nice and straight. Pull this up against it, tighten the knobs, And that is nice and solid. I'll do the same thing on the other one. So the idea here is that we want everything to be uncomplicated, and we want to remove as much interpretation as we can. Now, I'm ready to put the sheet back on and get 2 rips to the final dimension. Okay, so let's say that between sheets you had to take the parallel guides off for some reason, you didn't have your sequence right, but now you need to go back and duplicate the width of those parts we just ripped. Well, I don't need to get out a tape measure. I can just use the rip gauge once again and basically make a copy. So put the tab up against one side of the board that I want to copy, push the extension so that I can feel it's flush with the other side, tighten the knob, and there we have a dimension. Now we can reset the parallel guides just like we did before. So I now have 4 equal rips, nice, clean, controlled cuts. And you'll notice that this whole thing is very organized and creates very little stress on me physically, which is a really handy feature of the dashboard design. So some of this I need double thickness, so I'm going to glue these 2 pieces up before I cut them. That should do it. For the sake of variety, I've got a shortcut set up over here. This is an original model. Doesn't look quite like what we're selling now, but it's essentially the same thing. Still works. I've got cross-cut fences on there. I've got the guide rail brackets. I've got an outrigger on each end. On this end, I even have a couple of track stars for a little extra support. So I'm going to simply clean up, square up the ends on these 4 pieces. And just for the sake of consistency, I've got a couple of parallel guides set here. And so everything will end up the same between pieces once I square up the ends. All right, now 2 of these shelves are the same length and the other 2 are 2 other lengths. I am on the shortcut, and the first length is longer than anything I can use with this bench for a reference for a stop on the left side of the cut. So I'm going to make my reference on the right side. So I've made a pencil mark on the board right here. And so I'm going to put this up against the fence and just slide it down to where the cut line is. And I'll bring the rail down so we can see and just push that up against there. So I am on the splinter guard. So there's my dimension. And in this case, I'm going to use the flip stop way down here as my reference for those cuts. So the next piece, I'll just push up against the stop, and then we'll have our parts. Okay, now I want these shelves to appear thicker than they are. So with that in mind, I've ripped some narrow strips that will go along the fronts and the ends. And to connect those, I'm gonna cut some 45-degree miters on them so that they fold around the corners and look nice. And so you might be wondering, how can we cut 45-degree miters on dashboard system? Well, there are several ways, and this is just one. So here we are again, long rip configuration. You're familiar with that. I have the F2 mounted in this case with one hole on the table, one hole on the track star. So I'm going to leave these knobs back here all loose. Here I have my triangle representing the 45-degree angle. So I'm going to set the fence to the rail. So all I need to do is move everything like this until the triangle touches the rail and back, if I didn't get it right. And there we are. Now we have 45-degree angles. I'm going to tighten the track star, tighten the expandog, and tighten the fence to the fence block. So now I have a great 45-degree angle between the fence and the rail, and we're ready to go. Okay, so I've marked out the length of the end piece of the build-up on the first shelf. Made some marks here. This is my 45. And so I'm just going to slip this under the rail, keeping in mind that I do have other material here, and there's a piece under here and back here supporting the rail so it's not sagging while I make these narrow cuts. So I'm just going to put this up against the fence and then run my line up to the splinter guard so I know where that's going to cut. And since I need two of these, I'll use the flip stop against there. And we have the outrigger plus a track star supporting the rest of it here, but I'm just going to go one step farther, put that clamp there so nothing's going to move. And now we make the cut.